So good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Community Preservation Committee meeting of Wednesday, September 4th, 2024. This meeting will be conducted live and by remote participation pursuant to the executive order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law signed by Governor Baker, taking effect March 12, 2020, and subsequently extended through March 31st, 2025 under Governor Hill. We have a quorum here. There's 3 of us in the room and 2 online, so any votes that we take tonight will be a roll call vote. And with that, I will accept a motion to open the meeting.
So made. Second.
The meeting is open.
We need a vote.
We need a vote.
Yes.
So much for my comment about taking an online vote. I'll take an online vote. Dawn?
Yes.
Dwight?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Chairperson's report. I got a couple of comments, but I'm going to weave them into the individual because they're going to fit into a couple of the agenda items, so I think they'd be more appropriate to hit there. And we can jump right into the treasurer's report. If Barry can throw that up. I sent this out the other night, I think late at night.
I can't do it because I'm not, well, no, I'm not connected through my computer, so I can't put up. I'm trying to remember how I did that last time.
You got connected through your computer. Oh, all above me's here.
Yep.
Hi.
Hold on me. I think maybe what I did was I switched it over to me.
Yeah, I think you switched it. You switched it from something to yourself.
Yep.
Take a second and get that.
Okay. And now I gotta find the treasurer's report.
Sent out
Yep, I got it.
Monday night.
No, I found it. Now I just gotta put it up on the screen. And it's not gonna come up over there.
I see it.
They see it, oh, see, but you can't see it. Let me switch back. And
Now share your screen. Can you do that from this screen?
no, it's not letting me out. I don't remember how I did this. Hang on.
What does return to home screen do for
So
you?
you guys can see it, but we can't. I'm trying to.
What if you return to home screen? Yeah, that doesn't do anything. Gary Chancellor.
Well, does everyone else have a copy of it here in this
I
room?
do.
Treasurer's report, you have one, Michael?
I have a copy, yeah.
All right, so
So if we can,
it's on the screen, just tell me what page to go to.
well, okay, page 2.
Yep,
So page 2 is the typical, just an outline. We're going to take a quick look at the CP2 adjustments, the CP2 expenditures, and then some of the adjustments that we need to make. This has been a kind of long-running conversation, and again, I'll apologize for all the detail in here, but I didn't know how else to get through some of the things. The good news is we're not going to dig deep into these numbers. It's going to be kind of a very high-level look at them. And that's going to be a couple more slides. I'm going to take a look at some work we've done on the Cape and Reynolds. I'll ask Rich to chime in and make sure I say all the right stuff about what's on that slide. we're gonna look at again the CPA projects on hold due to the sunset bylaw. I did have a meeting with the Director of Finance last week, and we had some discussion about that, so we'll cover off that. And then a couple of projects that I just wanted to give examples of some of the work we've been able to do. Biz finally got me the information that we've been asking for that will allow us to dig a little deeper into these projects than we have in the past. Typically in the past, I've only been able to show you how much was spent in total. Now we're going to be able to look at detail invoice by invoice and see that. And at some point down the road, I still anticipate we will actually get copies of the invoices from the town as part of their approval process, so that we'll have even a deeper look. But Biz was in favor of that. Actually, she asked us, and we told her that's what we've been trying to get for a couple of years now. So if we can flip to page 3, Barry.
Yep.
This is the CP2 adjustments, expenditures. Oh, I don't have this page. But I know what's on it. No, I have it here. I'll pull it up. What I added this page in just before I sent it out. And I printed a copy for myself beforehand. This particular page, I copied off the Community Preservation Coalition website, because they recap. We've looked every year, we look at the CP2, which covers all of the CPA activity for the towns that are involved in the CPA. There's a section for revenues, there's a section for expenditures, and then there's a section for the balances and encumbrances and stuff like that. This section is strictly on the expenditures, because that's the focus of what we wanted to look at. And you can see each year on this slide, starting in the first year that we filed the CP2, at least from an expenditure basis on their website, was 2010, coming down to 2023. And we report expenditures in each of the 4 categories, as well as the administrative expenditures. And then I have totals thrown off to the right just to show it. So these totals we've seen before, not quite in this format. A couple of things I'll point out. If we look at the open space recreation column, and can you read that okay on your phone, Rich?
Oh, yeah.
Because it's going to be pretty small. But, you see the first expenditure in 2012 for $1,204,250. It's obviously when we paid for Glen Echo, our first big acquisition. And then, you've got years where we spent money on open space and years where we didn't. And the same going down the columns for historic housing. And in housing, I want to go look at that very first expenditure you see in 2016 for $20,000. Is kind of a phantom expenditure. We didn't have any expenditures in 2016 on housing. I believe that was an encumbrance that was recorded on a project for the South Shore community, South Shore Habitat for Humanity. We approved a payment, they encumbered it, but legally we couldn't work out some issues with the deed between the town and South Shore, so the project ended up getting canceled. This is going to come back in a couple minutes on another page, because my contention is we should see a credit for that $20,000, because we never spent it. So they put it on here. The issue with the CP2 is it's a 1-year look at things. There's no cumulative totals on it. So if something gets reported in 2016 and changed in 2017, there's no basis to correct it. There's no basis to give us that credit. Talking with Biz, what I'm hoping we will do is in 2024, we will make a number of corrections, which is what I'm going to go over here, to bring everything back in line on a cumulative basis for ourselves. The last thing on this page, the bottom line 2023, you see that we spent $149,372 in open space and $23,000 in recreation. Those totals are correct, but they're in the wrong categories. The 149 should have been in recreation. The 23,000 should have been in historic. So the total expenditures are correct, but
I just figured out. Hold on.
okay, Barry got us the screen so that we can see it here as well.
Okay.
So just other than that,
How are we gonna feedback? Hang on.
You gotta mute yourself.
I gotta figure out how to get feedback. Hang on. Let me mute this. Okay.
So other than that, this is just a year-by-year recap. The one other number I'll call out, if you look at the project expenditures of $7,633,099, 098, oh no, what's it, 098, 06, I'm looking at a different page. That number doesn't really change. If we can go to the next page, Barry. This first column, I'm calling the adjusted totals, and you can see it's actually a nickel difference, but I can get to that. No, I don't need to flip the page. You see the same number, the 7,633,098, with an adjusted column, which is off by a nickel. But when you look at open space, the total was over-reported. The as-reported is $1,465,000, and the adjusted is $1,263,000. So we overstated open space expenditures by $202,000. We just saw 149 of that was last year. So last year was the thing that triggered this. I knew there was a bunch of minor stuff going on that wasn't quite perfect, but we could live with that until they all of a sudden hit us with a big adjustment last year. And that's why I talked with Biz when she first came on, and we said we would deal with it with this year's CP2, which should be filed in the next couple of weeks, which is part of why I pulled this all together and dumped it on her lap. The historic preservation, you can see, is understated by the $23,000. The adjusted is higher because that's throwing me. Let me just 3, 2. Do I have some? Oh no, because they didn't get that 23,000. It was put into recreation last year, so that's why it's understated. And then the recreation total is off 179,000. Down below that are the individual transactions, if you will, the totals that were thrown off. And you can see Cape and Reynolds, Glen Echo, Pierce Street Playground, small amounts of money that was spent back in 2014 and 2015. They were put into open space. Back in those years, we didn't have a recreation category. So this wasn't done wrong. It was put into the single category for open space. When we started reporting recreation separately, it would have been nice to pull them out and put them into recreation as well, but that never happened. So now that we're going to make a cumulative adjustment on these things, I wanted to bring those back in. Then you can see there's a couple other minor ones, and then the 149,000 again that was over-reported in open space. Same thing on the next two categories. This is just a detailed listing of the adjustments that are being made to get us to the correct totals by category. And the overall total is off a nickel because last year they reported it, they rounded it off in dollars, and as I'm doing all this detailed work, it's done in pennies, so my files come up and I said, you know what, the nickel is the nickel. Doesn't matter to us, but it's there. So if we can go to the next page. The next page is really the meat and potatoes of the adjustments. And this is something I kind of stumbled into a couple years ago when we were first able to tally up all the totals by project and compare them to the CP2 totals. And I said, wow, 3 of the 4 categories were off, and the one that I used to find them was community housing, because we've only had, at that point, 2 completed projects in community housing. So it was pretty easy to narrow down what the spending was. And that's when I saw the $20,000 and realized what was going on. Went back and looked at some of the reports dating back to then. I believe it's the South Shore Habitat project, but I'll leave that up to the town to tell me, because I don't have the backup for what they did. I just know there was a $20,000 amount there, and that's how much that project happened to be. So the 3 variances, when I figured this out, open space is off $6,000. Some of you, meaning Dwight, may recall we had a Canton parcel that we were going to acquire adjacent to Glen Echo. We approved the project. I don't think they were ever able to resolve the title. We had spent $6,000. My understanding is we got that $6,000 reimbursed to the Community Preservation Fund, and the project was canceled. I don't have anything other than my own memory to tell me that, but I also know when I do all this, there becomes 2 options. either we start reporting that $6,000 as an expenditure that we made way back when,
Yeah.
or we make the adjustment in the cumulative spending. I think this one is the correct. The second one in historic preservation was off by $89,084.09. Dwight, you and I may remember this one. This is the town hall slate roof. Project was approved for up to $150,000. They charged us $150,000, and when I was doing one of my first reports, probably for the CPC, I came in and I showed it at 150, and it was probably John Morton said to me, well, how do we know that's the right amount? And we dug into it, and it turned out they didn't spend the full $150,000. They had money that was already budgeted to do some of the work on the roof,
Yeah.
and they had to use that first.
Yeah.
So they came back and said, okay, we owe you $89,084.09. Again, this was all a year or two later, so it never gets reflected into the CP2. So those are the three, and there's actually some obviously verbal explanations there, but those are the three big adjustments to be made here, and I think we'll be in agreement. I'm pretty confident that Biz is going to buy into my arguments here, but I at least wanted to share this piece with the committee before we file this CP2, and we're either going to fix it on the CP2 on a cumulative basis, or we'll at least have it documented why the CP2s that have been filed are different than the records we're showing.
Wow.
So, any questions on that? Because there's a whole ton of stuff that went into it, and
Yeah, I got a question.
good.
For back when we did that Glen Echo purchase, so we didn't, I remember the porcelain canton that included drum rock that we decided not to buy. But did that, I can't remember if that then affected the amount of money we had to pay for it or where, because that was bought by a private party instead. Lorraine Whitehurst, who has it, so I just can't recall how that affected our purchase price of it, because we ended up purchasing less than, 10 acres less than what we thought we were going to. And I understand there's 6,000 difference, but I'm not sure that's, I can't recall, and I don't want to spend too much time on it, but it seemed like, that was 10 acres we didn't get, and that money went somewhere.
I didn't think we bought anything, Dwight.
Yeah, we didn't buy anything in Canton. It's possible that $6,000 was used for some other expense.
There was some activity for $6,000, but when the deal fell apart, I thought we were getting the $6,000 back. So that, and we canceled the project. So for the last few years, we've showed that as a canceled project, like it never existed.
Right, but I'm just saying the original purchase price, we thought we were buying, let's say 100 acres, and you took that parcel out and we ended up buying 94, let's say. So that I just can't remember how that got reflected in any change in the purchase price or not.
Well, that may, if we go back to page 3, that may be one of the reasons why that expenditure you see in 2012 was only $1,204,000. The original project was approved for $1.5 million. So maybe that piece is that, Dwight.
Yeah. Okay.
That actually precedes my time on the committee. So this $6,000 parcel came up a couple years later and fell apart. Not the biggest of the adjustments, not really a big deal, but at least I want all of us to have some understanding and be on the same page. So I think that gets us there, but
Yeah.
if you recall something different, then we can always go back and look at it.
Those figures you just showed about the larger number shows a difference there that would explain
The 100 acres or so, yeah.
Well,
or the acre difference.
the other thing on that purchase was that the bonding costs were rolled into the amount of the award.
Which is probably, I don't know what those, I never had a breakout of that,
Yeah,
but, so I don't know, I always thought the actual purchase, I just took it as $1,205,000. That should include the bonding cost though.
I think any
Should've.
bonding costs were taken out of that account, but again, that's before my time too.
It just, that feels like an awful small amount of money for a $1.2 million
Oh, you mean the 5,000 that's above one?
Well, yeah, it would only be $4,500.
I don't know what the actual purchase price was.
Right, it could have been $1,150,000,
Yeah.
and then it would have been,
Yeah.
yeah.
When we added expenditure of, we had to buy for the trust, the conservation easement. It took a long time to get that done, and I don't know where that money shows up, the money we have to pay to Wildlands Trust, whatever their name is, to hold the easement, but that
Barry,
costs several.
Page 3 again.
Um,
Okay, on a cumulative basis on the Glen Echo project, we spent the $1,204,000, then we spent another $22,149, which is the $9,995 that you see in 2016, and $14,000 of the $23,000 that you see in 2019. That, I think, had to do with the Wildlands Trust restriction.
yeah. I think so.
I'm not quite sure why they are so far apart on here, but
Well, it took a long time, because then we had to look for the deed to get the boundaries correct, so before we could finally pull the trigger on the Wildlands Trust, I think several years had passed, because it took us a while to sort out the boundaries. Forrest Lindwall was a great help eventually.
actually I do remember that, Dwight, but so we went from 2012, we spent some of the money for the restriction in 2016 and the rest in 2019.
Yeah.
Not really questioning that. I mean, that's why, in fact, we're going to talk about that again on another slide in terms of the recreational area restriction. But we'll get to that. So that's one of the advantages of looking at this stuff year by year, all thrown together, whether it be this way or across the page. It would be easier if we didn't have all these little changes, because it really was a change when we added recreation as its own category starting in 2015. That's really where most of those discrepancies came up. So if we can move on, Barry, to page 5. This is now a breakdown of the Cape and Reynolds, which we've had several conversations about here at the meeting. I've had a few offline with Rich. At our last meeting, actually, Rich was talking about some discussions he had with the procurement office and the accounting office and how they were struggling to marry up the invoices to the funds to everything that was coming in on the project. And something clicked that night. I started thinking about, well, maybe they're not treating donations and these gifts the way I thought they were. And it turns out they aren't. Because for whatever reason, under municipal accounting, the gifts and donations to this project, and we'll look at them in specific in a minute, get pushed to the side, and then they move expenses over and wash out the money that way. And that's kind of what was happening to Cape and Reynolds, and it turns out that's exactly what happened to the Glen Echo Recreation. If the number $76,000 rings a bell to anybody that we've been chasing for 4 or 5 months, whether we were 81,000 underspent or 5,000 underspent. The difference was a park grant, PARC grant that we got for $76,000, and because of the way it was being accounted, it made it look like we were $81,000 underspent, but we're really only $5,000 underspent. But we did get the $76,000 deposited into the CPA fund.
I just thought of a rationale why they might not have added them back into the account. Because if an outside grant comes in, it's not subject to the same restrictions as the CPA funds are. So if they want to spend it on something that's, let's say, doesn't qualify for the CPA, under the CPA definitions, if they put it into the CPA fund, then they have to meet all the criteria. If they don't, then they don't have to. I don't know, that's just a guess.
Yeah, I don't know what the real answer is. And there may be some of that, but for example, the Stanton Foundation funds that we're going to talk about were very specific to this project. So
Also, the conservation
Yeah.
donation was
So
specific
Cape
to
and
that.
Reynolds, Rick, we're going to walk down this page. At the top, we see the original ATM 2015 approval for $278,000. We spent $125,000, which only left $152,000, at which point we realized we couldn't complete the project, and so it kind of went on. We came back in 2023, and we see these funding sources, the $463,000, which anticipated using that $152 plus the $463 to complete the project. We got approval to do that, and you can see that that's project 10691. In the meantime, and this I think really highlights the great job that Rich has done, we list the individual donations to the account. Rich got $6,000 from Cape and Reynolds, and it's probably Rich and his whole committee, but $6,000 from Cape and Reynolds, the original grant from the Stanton Foundation for $25,000, the $50,000 from the Friends of Cape and Reynolds, another grant, the big one from Stanton for $213,000, and then Conservation has agreed to give $30,000. So $324,000 worth of donations to the project. The first two of these, the $6,000 and the $25,000, was set up in Munis under project number 10678. As expenses started rolling in, and that's the next section down on this page, you can see the Warner Larson and the Maltby, they charged all the expenses to project 10691. And they should be 10678. And some of them actually, the 23,520 probably should go against the Friends of Cape and Reynolds, but we can, Rich and I are gonna have to work out that detail still with.
That could go against the 463, and I think that's what they did.
Well, that is against the 463.
Yes,
Okay.
that is correct.
So that one can be left. The other ones had to move. And then they've encumbered another bill for Warner Larson for $5,500, which I think goes against the original $6,000.
Correct. The Friends of Cape and Reynolds Farm donated that so they could create a conception.
Yeah.
We had no funds authorized for that purpose.
Yeah.
So the Friends stepped up and said, here's $6,000 in case you're a little over.
Okay, so we've got some more work to do to unwind this. The real question becomes though, Rich, can we complete this project for less than the $787,000?
Well, I believe we can.
Yeah, so
I know we can.
the good, and that's not counting the 125 that was already in the early one. We don't have to add that back into that question. So we should be okay going forward. Rich and I will continue to work with Fran and Biz to make sure these bills get moved to the right numbers and that the new bills coming in get applied to the right sources.
Right. Matter of fact, the contractor has been doing his invoices specific for that, which is the dog park, and everything else, so that they can be allocated accordingly.
More easily allocated, and we will work with them. And I laid this out, I sent this in a note to Fran, because one day when I was here, she asked me about it, and Rich and I talked about it, and he gave me the details, and we said, okay, let's put it all down on paper so that everybody, again, is on the same page and we can track it out. So I think we're in good shape on this project, even with the issues associated with the sunsetting of the original appropriation on us.
I have a question.
Yeah.
On the item encumbrances,
Yeah?
it says Warner Larson, 5525, and then Maltby and Company tree removal for Cape
You know,
Reynolds.
that probably
That number is way off.
Yeah, no, that's probably a bad description.
That number should be somewhere around 26,000.
I probably just copied the description down. There's a lump sum encumbrance for $414,000.
Okay.
I probably put,
Okay.
I'm glad you pointed that out. I
They
probably
didn't
got
put
the
that
bad.
many trees down.
Forget
Yeah,
Maltby.
that's a lot of money from all.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah,
good.
right. Well, they got a new building going up, you
Yeah,
know?
that's more than half the project, but.
I'm a finance guy. My focus was on that column with numbers in it.
Right.
I'm pretty sure that all I did was copy down the wrong description, so. Again, we'll fix it, but I think this will help us have those conversations with Biz and.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was kind of a setup for the next slide, which is a repeat from last month, the CPA projects in process. No changes here. The highlighted projects are the ones that are on hold. And starting at the top, we had the Glen Echo acquisition, which we originally approved $1.5 million. At one point, we dropped that down after the acquisition was completed for $1.2 million. We rescinded $200,000 of borrowing, which also then effectively reduced the approval to $1.3 million. We then spent another $22,000. So the 1,204 plus the $22,000 is the 1,226 that you see. So in theory, we should have $73,000, which we've been carrying for several years, with the only outstanding item being the conservation restriction on the active recreation area, which is not going to cost anywhere near that money. But in talking this through with Biz, somewhere along the way, over the 8 or 10 years that we've been carrying this money, somebody forgot to carry the money forward to pay for this, even though we're showing that we should have 73,000. In her system, she no longer has that as a revenue item. So I've talked with Barry, what we're gonna do is put in a new project to cover the cost of that restriction. Now, if the sunset, they are going to a fall town meeting asking to exempt these projects from the sunset or to overturn it, whatever, retroactive stuff. But even if they do that, we're not gonna have any money for this project, so we're gonna need to put it in. Anyway, so much easier for us to go ahead and do that. We'll come up with an estimate. I don't know if it's 25,000, if it's 30,000. The only number I know is that we spent roughly $20,000 the first go around on the big area. I would hope that the active recreation one is smaller because it's a much smaller area, but we will figure that out and put in a new project for that. I don't think we're anywhere near close to needing that money in the next couple of months, so we'll get that up and running. The next project was the original Glen Echo recreational facilities. Oh, Dwight?
So in terms of that money that we had before from Glen Echo, but then it went poof, is that money that still came off what our overall total was for CPA money that we had? I mean, or has that money ever been put back into our total that we have to spend from?
That money is in our total that we have to spend from.
Okay.
Yeah, it never got moved out, it just kind of was on paper, kind of reserved that they need to kind of do it in two places. One is you look at the budget and you look at the expenses and the difference is what you got left over, but they literally have to make entries in Munis to carry the revenue forward from year to year, and that was the entry that didn't get made. It doesn't mean we lost the money, we have the money in the CPA fund. So then the recreational facilities, 324,000. We spent 323. There's $647. We're gonna just go ahead and close out that project. There's no more work to be done. I think we held it open because of the supplemental and the questions around the $76,000. Now that we've resolved it, we're actually gonna go ahead and close out both of those projects. So we'll prepare a closing sheet. We'll bring it in here, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute too. The two Cape and Reynolds, Rich, were the ones on here that I was most concerned with. The farmhouse security and rehab, we have like one transaction for $9,729.
Yes, that was for the purchase of storm windows, which
Yeah.
are architecturally made into that vintage house.
So if they get the sunset provision overturned at town meeting, that would then open up the rest of this money,
About 22,000.
about 22,000.
Right.
That we could then spend as long as it's in accordance with the original. Or we could just say, let's forget this, let's look at what we need to do going forward and make a new project out of it.
I think that's the better
I
solution.
think it's a better alternative.
For one reason, the person who gave us this budget woefully underestimated, but not only the stabilization project for the farmhouse,
Yeah.
but also for the whole project, the Cape and Farm project. And Bernie Gober did a nice job
Yeah.
conceptually, but he's since passed away.
So
So let's start over.
that works better for us, I think it works better for the town, so we'll go ahead and close out this project as well. The Cape and Reynolds, I guess the original 278 with the 152 that's on hold, we don't need that money, so we can go ahead and close that out. We should be able to live within the money that we got thanks to all the donations that you generated. The railroad station, originally for $350, we spent $340. We haven't spent any money for a couple of years on that. I don't think there's any more work to be done there, so I think we should go ahead and close that one out.
Could I make a suggestion?
Yeah?
That I drove by the train station today, as I do quite often.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of work that has to be done inside, the infrastructure. But there's equally a lot of work that has to be done on the outside, like painting, sealing concrete, etc. That could be done while we're waiting for the work to get done on the inside, which is more extensive.
It could if someone had the money to do it.
What's that money there for? Is that
That
earmarked?
money was not approved to do this work.
Okay,
So we can't just, one of the dangers of leaving projects open is people then begin to think they can use that money. We can't.
okay.
We can only use it for what was specified back then. And it would be a bit of a push to say 8 years later, we were thinking about this additional work, so.
Okay,
Rehab fire station, I don't think there was any work to be done there. We did spend some money on that project, but it was obviously scaled way back. The ancient documents, we had actually already submitted a closing sheet for that. The next one, which is not highlighted, was the supplemental on the railroad station, which there's no money left, so we should just go ahead and close it out. And then the Glen Echo Recreation, we did get an extension on it because that was just running out in June, so Biz got the extension from the board, but we don't have enough money to do any of the things we wanted to do there. I believe Eric is in the process of putting together a new project for that. And the restoration of the antique fire station, I know Joe is working still on that. We had the nice presentation from Joe when he drove it here for us. So we'll leave that one open. The rest of the page down to vital records is all the current stuff that will just continue in the process. Vital records, Barry, you did have some emails back and forth with Reggie. I don't think she's really had a chance to dig into this one yet.
No, but she is at least willing to pick up the ball where it was left off, so.
But we're gonna have the same problem that we had with Cape and Reynolds, because this money goes away.
It does.
So that second project is not gonna be enough money for her to do what she needs to do.
So I would say we do the same thing, we close it out and have a new article come forward.
Yeah, or let's hold that one and at least have that conversation with Biz, how she wants to handle that.
Yeah, she may have missed that one because it wasn't.
Yeah, I think she did, because one of the complications, and more of the detail that I wanted to avoid for you folks, which you've heard me mention in the past, the two CPA funds, there's 3014 and 5040. All the projects that Biz included on her on hold were in the 5040. She didn't go to the 3014. The only active project in the 3014 was the vital records. So I think she just missed out on her list and hasn't picked it up yet. And I know she's going through a whole bunch of stuff to get them, so we'll just have that as a conversation with Biz to figure out. But I think the answer is going to be this will have to get closed out and the other one will have to get resubmitted at some point. Any questions on all of that? Because the gist of that was hopefully to convince everybody and get concurrent that we can go ahead and close a bunch of these projects. It's kind of what the town wants, and it's going to work out in our own best interest, so.
So how do you plan on reporting that? You know, I know you did your presentation at town meeting, and so are you going to reallocate all of those funds and make them available for future projects?
Essentially, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
we will, part of what Biz wants to go into town meeting with is a list of here's the projects that can be closed out.
Right.
We're gonna talk later on the agenda about the overall closeout process.
Yeah.
And why what we were doing is a little bit different than what Biz wants to do, and what we're gonna do going forward, which encompasses both. But, yeah, this money just, by closing it out, it no longer is reserved for these projects. The money has never left the CPA fund.
Right.
It's in there in the account, so
Right.
it will
Okay.
become available to us.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll have to look into where the money was originally drawn from,
Right.
in other words, which fund within the CPA fund it came from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, we will. It's
Yes.
not always as difficult as that sounds, because we may have taken it out. I mean, that third section of the CP2 is all about the reserves. That's still an open discussion I have going with Biz. So yes, there'll be more conversation on that in another month or two when we resolve the CP2. But that money, in adjusting the total, it'll affect whether we adjust the reserve for historic or the reserve for undesignated. We'll work those details out. The real gist of that, the most important thing for us, the money is still in the CPA fund. whether it's in this bucket or that bucket, we'll get the details straightened out.
I think the definitive answer would be to go to the town clerk's office and get the minutes from the town meeting, where the motion would say which fund the money is coming out of.
Yeah, which, as part of the write-up for the closeout, we should probably look at that and make note of that.
Yeah.
And for example, on the Glen Echo, on the closeout, we should mention the $76,000 donation that isn't reflected in the CPA accounts, but that's there, so that we get to, and we'll do the same thing when the day comes for the dog park. We can accommodate all that as part of our documentation as we close out the project. Any other questions on? So then, the last 3 slides, let's go to the next one, is, we kind of covered this, it's the 10056, the original Glen Echo. This is what I was saying, we now have a lot of the detail, and you can see the bond proceeds, bond premium, the credits that we got, and then the individual invoices that were paid against it. And there's a brief comment on the invoices to tell you what it was for, but we literally there's a bunch of additional fields that I had to hide on this page, or else it would be too small to read. Not that it isn't already an eye chart, but we have that detail that we can trace it back to, if you look at that year and period, that's year 22, so it's telling me in fiscal year 22 and probably July of 21 is when that happens. So we know exactly what those transactions are that they could go back and pull out. More important for us going forward, that'll be the type of detail, and then we'll also get it supported with copies of the invoices. So on this one, it's the same numbers I already read off, the 323 that we spent, the 324 for the budget, and the 656. Next page is the second part of this that showed the $236,000 approval. We spent $230,000, so we were underspent by $5,000, but if you look at some of the detail lines, you'll see the $76,000 transfer in and out of CPA operations. We've confirmed what that is, why it was done this way, and that the money, most importantly, is still in the CPA fund. So this page will become part of the closeout process. So when we put it to the books, we'll have all the detail in case anyone ever wanted to go back and revisit it.
It's still in the CPA fund, but it's not available for this project.
Right, the 76,000.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
And then the railroad station restoration, where we had a $340,000 expenditure against a $350,000 budget. I mean, this project has been kicked around because they actually did borrow, I think it was 20,000 of it, way back when. And then we were about to pay off the bond anticipation note in 2023 when we went ahead and said, go ahead and pay it off. We know they've done it, they just haven't reflected it totally in the CPA account, but it's there. But again, here's a list of all the invoices they paid, showing them a little bit of description of the work they've done. That'll be part of our closeout. So I included 3 projects there, not to go through them per se, but just to show the type of detail that I expect we will be able to review. And then Barry reminded me, we're going to get copies of the invoices too, so I think we're going to be able to be way more on top of these things going forward. Any questions? So that was a long-winded treasurer's report. I apologize for the detail, but I thought it was important to
I
get
think it's
everybody.
really good, because
Yeah, no, I
I
think
now
it's-
understand it much
Yeah.
better.
Well, that's the whole point.
Not just my little project, but this whole project. This
Why-
I
effort.
didn't know
why I
about the
do it.
gifts either,
That was all, I couldn't figure out the 76,000, I
Yeah,
kept
that was-
asking about it. And when we sat here and Rich was trying to explain to me so that I understood what he was being told by them, by Fran and Mary Jane, and it just dawned on me that I don't really know what they're doing with the donations. And the next morning, I was actually out on a hike with Dwight, I finally made it to one of his hikes, and Eric was there, and Eric and I had a conversation. And the light went off in Eric's head later, and he called Barry and said, I know what the $76,000 is. So that started us down a path where we all learn from each other, we all work together to get this done. So with that, I will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the administrator's report.
Okay, I'm just trying to put together my thoughts and let's see, some updates. I'm working on trying to find out from Conservation if they ever signed the CR for Atkinson that we sent over to them, and so far still haven't gotten an answer. Not sure why, that's a difficult question to answer. Either they signed it and they have it, or they didn't and they don't. So
Yeah.
nobody can tell me one way or the other. The other issue, the other CR is for the recreation area within Glen Echo. The next step for that is, and I think I dropped the ball on that one. The next step is for me to transmit that to the select board so the select board can approve it or make whatever comments
Changes
that
they want.
Yep. And I guess those are things at the top of my head that
Yeah.
are coming to me. I guess the next thing, we can move on to the next thing on the agenda if you'd like, because John isn't here, but I do have an update on Benson Road.
Okay, although in deference to Matt, who's already had to sit through a long-winded conversation on the budget, these next pieces under project updates are all internal by committee members, so if the committee doesn't object, I'd like to invite Matt up to give us his piece.
I appreciate that, Michael. My wife will be happy.
We all know the value of a happy wife.
Yeah.
I think we all do.
Alright, so Matt Cochon, Recreation Director. So we have the full application for the supplemental funding for the Halloran Park Multi-Sport Court. I gotta give a shout out to Barry. He helped me with the give me a nice breakdown of the budget. So nothing much has really changed from the pre-application. You'll see we have a projected project cost of $474. We have funding coming in from that was secured from Rep. Ted Phillips for $25,000. And we have a CPA request for $164,400. So we estimated the project cost would be $430. Bear and I got that off of looking off of the bids that we received in March. So we have actual numbers. And we looked at the two closest bids, 392 and 398. So we figured that could go up a little bit, could stay the same to 430. And then contingencies was 44,000, which brought the total project to 474. And then you would minus the CPA balance that we have now, which is 284,600, and then take away the $25,000 coming from the state, which would get us to the 164,400. So like I said, nothing much has changed on the project. So a brief overview. Multi-sport court at Halloran Park will replace the existing basketball court there with two basketball courts, post-tension concrete, surrounded by street hockey boards. All of the permitting and design is finished. Bid docs, construction docs done, as we obviously went up to bid in March. DPW will be saving us some money because they're going to dismantle the court. So they're going to try to do as much as they can. And they already worked that into the previous bid docs for when we originally went up to bid, so that's already all set. That'll save us some money. Yeah.
So I guess the question, we have two possible approaches depending on what happens with the sunset bylaw in terms of whether the original funding would be able to be used. That would normally expire at the end of this fiscal year, next June. It can be extended another year after that, but of course this all depends on what happens with the sunset bylaw itself. It could be just there on the books and available if the sunset bylaw is overridden.
If it's overridden, yeah, the money, it's a little bit easier for us on this project. Even if it's not, we could get, certainly I would expect the Board of Selectmen to grant a year's extension. And if we're very confident that this all could be accomplished certainly by June of 2026, then we should be in really good shape.
Yeah, June 2026.
Either way.
I'm extremely confident. Yeah, and I did have a conversation with Mark Tisdale about this going up the fall. So he was good with it. Obviously, you guys are good with it. But he did say, again, I don't know. You probably know more about what's happening at the special town meeting with the sunset clause. Okay. I don't. All I know is there's a placeholder there, but I don't know any details. But when we talked, I talked to him last week. He said it could help. Let's say if the sunset clause doesn't change, we would then get, because what we'd do is if this project's approved and we're going to fall town meeting, what I'll do is I'll work with Fran and we'll go to bid like in a month. Then we'll get a contractor lined up and we'll get a number held for town meeting. So then we'll actually have like an actual number of what it will cost, contractor lined up. And then if it's approved to fall town meeting, we get to work, have DPW start dismantling the park, and then go out to construction and finish the project. That could be done before June 30th, 2025. But
Question. If the bid comes in and it's greater than what you've requested, can we adjust this application before it goes to town meeting?
When do you expect the bids would come in?
So that's something I'm gonna ask engineering Fran on what's the best approach, because I don't know, can you go out to bid now, or will they hold that number for special town meeting?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if a contractor will do that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we would have to approve a number, and if that number goes to town meeting, it can't be increased. If it turns out that because of the bidding that comes in, we haven't allocated enough money, then it would have to come back to us and we would have to approve the increase first.
Yeah. I would hope it won't, as we have actual bid numbers as of this March, 392 and 398. And that total will get us up to 474.
So
So I'm feeling it would be hard to go above that.
when are you anticipating going out to bid?
So I was gonna work with Fran and engineering and seeing when would be the best time to go out to bid. Because I don't know if I could go, we have all the stuff ready, so if we go out to bid now, you just hold it up, you put in the bid docs, funding contingent on fall town meeting, November 20th. So then the contractor knows that's when they can get the money, and if they don't get the money, the bid gets canceled. But I don't know if we go out now, will a contractor hold their price for that? They might. I don't know. I don't have any experience in that.
When you say for fall town meeting in 2024?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would expect they would, I mean, that's only a couple months away, so I wouldn't expect too much problem with them holding the cost for that. But we could conceivably, couldn't we do that under the current open appropriation, or open approval, the original approval? I mean, it's not gonna cost us any money to go back out to bid.
No,
We did
have
with the
everything.
Cape and Farm. We went out the bid, couldn't do it, and we came back,
And go out to bid,
did it again.
but, so the question is, can we get that done and then be in a position to move forward and spend this money in the appropriate time? But even if the sunset doesn't get overruled, we have a year and a half, a little over that, I guess, almost 2 years, but if we're gonna move forward. The one other question I think we need to get buy-in from Biz as to whether she would rather see this as a new appropriation in total or a supplement to what's there. Because otherwise, we're gonna run into the same problem. Which appropriation do we charge it to? And that just has not worked out as easily as you might think it should have. But again, that's a quick question. I don't think that causes us time. If we truly are committed to moving forward with the project, then I would suggest you go out to bid as soon as possible and get updated costs. If we were to go the route of two appropriations, then we could change the 164 as long as we do it before the warrant is closed out.
Yeah.
I don't think we're gonna get all that done before a warrant for fall town meeting, but certainly if it came back and it was worse, we could get it done for a warrant for the annual town meeting.
So just so we cover all our bases, I know I'd sent you another version of the application,
Yeah.
the front page with the higher amount, which is if we couldn't use the existing allocation. The other question is if it's going to be coming up at fall town meeting, just to cover us, we should have an urgent review application.
Okay. Okay.
Don't be shy. You can always give it back if you don't spend it.
Yeah, so you guys, probably go to bid now, try to get that number locked in for try to have the contract locked in for that date of that special town meeting.
That's, I think that's the best.
Well, you may wanna find out from them,
Yeah.
you know. I think they're gonna wanna know when you're gonna start the project,
Right.
because that's where they're gonna worry about locking in the cost.
Right.
Locking in the cost for November, if they're not gonna start for 6 months,
Doesn't do them.
doesn't help them a lot. So you're really asking them to lock it in till the start of the project.
Right. Which will be depending, because if we go to like fall town meeting, right, we get that money in the fall, then we could conceivably start right away or like early spring.
Yep.
Whereas then if we would wait till annual, you're really starting like the summertime,
Right.
early
Yeah.
fall.
Yeah.
But that's where I think that's incumbent upon the town to tell us when they're going to be ready to do all that work.
Yeah.
And what their criteria are, sometimes they have different criteria for town meetings in the fall. Sometimes they have to be emergency items, sometimes they have more
Yeah, I mean-
flexibility, and we don't know at this point.
I know, and we had this discussion, I think, a couple months ago, Matt. Members of this committee, based on past history of things submitted at town meeting or in the fall, are a little leery that it just doesn't seem to go over as well as when we do it in the spring. But I kind of look at it, it's really up to you guys as to when you want to go to town meeting. And our advice might be, it could hurt you to go in the fall.
Yeah,
But if you and Mark and Tom Calter feel that that's the right time to do it, then I don't think we would stop you. I don't think we'd have any reason to.
And if it gets rejected at the fall town meeting, you can't resubmit the same article in the spring,
Right.
Yeah, so that's a,
That's the
unless you change it, change the whole parameter of them. And you don't want to do that.
Yeah, that would be a lot. But you couldn't do that. Yeah.
What I've seen in my business is the prices have stabilized for months now.
yeah, well, that- which,
On, like stainless and copper, and, I mean, very volatile products. And I don't know about the concrete, that's something that's, I know nothing about, but I think things have settled. Look at gasoline's, I'm under $3 a gallon. So, if you have to wait till spring, it may not hurt you.
any comments online? Dwight, Don?
Is Other Reese with us too?
And did Luis join? Oh, John Lenahan's in now, I see, in Old Bumby.
I'm sorry, I probably came into this conversation too late.
I guess,
You should go
in
for
a
it.
nutshell,
Where's that?
Go for it.
we're talking the Halloran Park
Yeah.
project, John.
Yeah.
And
Well, Mark was on.
Matt had some conversation with Mark Tisdale
Just like,
that they could proceed to bring this possibly to a fall town meeting in November.
Get the funds.
And I know as a committee, we've kind of gone a little cautious on that, just based on past experiences. But my opinion is that really is up to the proponent and to the town, as to whether or not it makes sense to go in the fall.
yeah, so I can have another conversation with Mark and Tom.
But I think you also gotta work out with Biz how to best put this, whether it be a new project completely or just a second piece of it.
Yeah,
I think we can work with whatever works best for the town.
yeah. So ask her whether we should add this as a supplemental or rescind
Yeah.
the money and then start over.
Yeah.
So would that change anything as far as application, Barry, is concerned? I think you said an urgent application.
Yeah, if it's going to the fall, we need an urgent review.
Urgent?
Yeah.
But
But either way, we'll need an urgent, even if we go with just the supplemental.
For the
Well, we
fall.
don't really need the urgent because we've already approved that could be considered, haven't we?
No,
No?
not for this particular request.
Okay, so do we need an urgent either way?
We need well, if it's, the only thing we wouldn't need an urgent review for is if you're willing to wait till the spring.
Right.
Right, so if
But
we're gonna
either
go for the
way,
fall, we
urgent.
need an urgent.
Okay, either way, whether it's supplement or brand new.
Right, whether it's the 164 or the full number.
474,
Yeah,
okay.
because think of it, if somebody has a project that's been approved and they need more money, and they wanna go and, sort of, to go to the fall town meeting, I think we need to, and that's not our normal process.
Right.
That's what we need an urgent review for, even if it's a supplemental for an existing project.
You already bid this once, didn't you?
Yeah, Mark.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I was gonna say, Rich, your comment about costs having kind of leveled off a bit bode well, because he's got 2 March bids, and he's kind of taken the average of the high and the low, or 2 of
So
them.
only a couple months apart.
Okay.
So
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, what
that
happened-
stability should give us some room to play.
yeah. What happened last time is that the bids came in well over what we'd allocated for.
Right.
It wasn't enough, that's why he's here.
And it was a year later or 2 years later.
Yeah, it was a while.
I mean, it was a long time frame, and as we know, a very volatile long time
2022,
frame.
2023, sure.
And the labor rates are set by the state,
Yeah,
and they go up incrementally every quarter,
yeah,
Yeah,
but that's not a big deal.
right.
so I would guess you
Biggest
get,
question mark would be the concrete.
Yeah.
That's probably the most expensive item.
Is that your machine?
Someone probably needs to
John
mute
Linehan,
himself.
are you?
Mute himself. It's John, yeah.
We're getting a lot of feedback here, John, on yours.
Sorry,
oh, I just muted him.
He muted you in the middle of what you were saying.
I think
so-
he's in the car is what he was gonna say.
Yeah.
Just nod twice if that's true. Sorry.
Yeah,
So-
if you look at the concrete part of the project, it was bidded out. The total was like 3,898. 182 of that was the concrete.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if it, regardless of whether you go now or the fall, would it be helpful just to get things in motion to put a bid together and
Yeah, I totally think so.
do that now, and you can still decide before you release the bid whether you want to aim for the fall or the spring.
Right. Yeah. So looks like I'll meet with Mark, go over this again. I'll meet with Liz, ask her that question.
Yeah.
I'll talk to Fran and see if she can get a bid.
And try to get it moving.
She's all the bid docs, everything done.
Yeah,
So
it's
start
really the same
Sending it back out. It's the same thing. Yeah, we can do that, and I'll get you guys the urgent
request.
station.
That's kind of just putting the ducks in a row so that we can do that.
Yeah.
Because if we have fall town meeting in mid to late November,
Yeah.
they'd have to close the warrant.
I think it's in November. Oh, no, it's not November. November 8th, I think they're saying. Could be wrong. I saw
Whatever,
it
it's
on the
just-
other- Yeah.
Sometime in advance of that, so.
Yeah, and I think they're looking at,
Actually,
the date I heard was November 18th for a possible town meeting, but it's
November
not,
18th, 20th. Actually.
yes, but it's not in stone, I mean, it's
Yeah.
possible.
18th, that would be a Monday, yeah.
Closing the warrant.
John, you were probably about to say you were in your car, right? That or under a waterfall.
The warrant will be open 9/17.
Oh, so they do have an actual date.
I mean, it's all temporary, I think.
It's all potential.
Enclosed
9/18.
a week later, probably.
They have to post the warrant on November 8th. But I don't know if that's, again, this is all temporary emails I'm getting. Yeah, I mean, if they open the warrant, usually like a week or two out.
I thought they usually gave like a week,
Yeah.
at least for a fall meeting, and that's,
And they could open it one night and,
close it the next, I mean,
Yeah.
theoretically, they just
So-
have to,
Bottom line is we'll have two CPC meetings possibly, October and November barely squeaking in before that,
Yeah.
correct?
so if the town wants to proceed with it at a fall town meeting, they could always put it in. We do this work behind it, and as Dwight says, I mean, we could approve it as late as November. So just before that, but there's only 2 more meetings to do it. It's a lot of work to get done in a very short time,
Yeah.
but it is a project that,
yeah.
the gist of what we're trying to do hasn't changed.
Right.
We're really talking about the cost and the timing of getting this done, so.
Yeah.
Yep.
um,
So that would probably, if you want to go for the fall town meeting, that would probably justify it to do it as soon as possible before costs go up, or,
Right. Yeah.
you know, I mean,
We get the money,
again,
get the
given what
plans.
Richard said, that prices are fairly stable, it's not a really strong argument at this point, but it's an argument.
Right. Yeah, we got the money, everything's all lined up. Let's get her done.
Perhaps the important thing from our perspective, or from your perspective from us, is that I think we're still pretty much in good support of this. That
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I haven't heard otherwise unless somebody else feels differently.
Any other concerns or comments online?
No.
Don says no.
Yeah, we have already approved.
No.
No. Dwight says no.
All right, good.
Anything else? Any other questions then for Matt?
Good luck.
Thank you.
All right,
Okay.
thanks for
If you
coming
need
in.
anything, Matt, reach out to me.
Yeah,
Me,
I'll
Barry,
be in
whoever
touch
will.
with Barry tomorrow on a urgent app. I'll get that over to you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and that bought us enough time possibly to get an update on Benson Road directly from the man himself.
Directly from John.
The newly retired or newly about to be retired. Welcome to the
I'm
club,
getting there.
John.
John, I heard your interview on NPR last week.
Is that good?
No doubt.
Yep.
Anyhow, good news finally on Benson Road. We closed on August 15th.
Yep.
So, now it's onward to getting a conservation restriction placed on the property.
So, I had actually started on that, and I don't know if somebody else was starting on it. I don't want to duplicate someone else's work.
Not to my knowledge, Barry,
Okay,
but thank you very much for getting started on that.
okay.
What was that called? Conservation, what was it?
Conservation restriction.
Restriction.
Yeah. Anytime the town uses CPA funds to purchase a property, there has to be a permanent restriction.
You typically use the initial CR.
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 CR, same thing, yep.
All right. Some progress.
Okay, no, that's good.
So thank you, everybody, for your patience on this.
No, it's a good project. Barry and I were talking a little bit about it earlier, just in that, that's still the one project when we advertised for requests to the public, that's when the woman came into us and said, hey, I got a property, which kind of
That's right.
shows the process works. So good, thank you, John. And next on the agenda, and we probably already covered this, Rich, anything else you wanted to add on
Well,
Cape and Reynolds? or-
I think the agenda says update on the grounds.
Oh.
This is the spreadsheet from the contractor, and this was done on August 8th. From start to finish, when they expect to finish. At that time, he thought they would be finishing around September 19th. I checked with engineering today, and they've extended that to about the 25th. So if it went to the end of September, I wouldn't be surprised, based on the hiccups they ran into, the granite, a couple of more trees coming down, and a storm sluice they had to actually create out of rock. That added a little bit of
Yeah.
expense, but we have enough cushion to handle it. So the dog park is almost completed. The only thing left to do for the dog park is to finish the gates that whole area has been done. It's almost, they even got the toys or playthings for dogs to run
Yeah.
through and under. It's looking like a dog park, and they're working on they built the gazebo. They have ordered the sheet metal. The gazebo's wood,
Yeah.
but the roof will be clad with a metal roof, which has a longer
Yeah.
life expectancy than asphalt shingles. And I was asked to pick a color, black or brown. I chose brown because the shingles on the barn and the house are brown.
Okay, makes sense.
They are also, because the electrical panel was so old and suspect, it was decided not to run power from the house to the gazebo. And that would have meant a lot of trenching. Instead, we're going to use solar panel bollards, which will be just as good.
Yeah.
And they'll be spaced, and if you go down, you'll see brown concrete posts or in the level with the ground. That's where the solar panel bollards will be situated. So they'll be,
Okay.
if someone stays a little too long and suddenly it gets dark and they have bad eyesight, they can get out of there,
Yeah.
get back to the parking lot or wherever they have to go. The landscaping, according to the schedule, will start soon. They've already done a little bit of it where they can. And they are laying down the the permeable layer for the dog park parking area next to Pleasant Street. They'll do the same thing on the Pine Street side for the handicapped. So that's, the granite is all laid. It looks impressive, and I think, you know, we'll be done probably around September 25th or the 30th at the latest. The good thing is the contractor has been communicating so well with engineering that there's another project coming up that fits their bailiwick, and engineering has asked that they be put on the bid list.
Yeah.
They just work so well with our engineering department.
Good for them.
I mean, another town of Stoughton project.
Yes, another Stoughton project.
I just had two quick questions.
Yeah.
So I know that they were gonna redo that corner. Is that,
Intersection.
yeah, is that are they doing anything with that? Is that, you're
Oh, you mean
finishing?
the intersection?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. In 2023 ATM, funding was approved for the town to do the engineering of that corner.
Right.
And right now, it's a big, broad Y.
Yeah.
Instead, it'll be a 90-degree turn,
Yep.
which will extend the Cape and Reynolds property into that intersection as it is now.
Yep.
And that's when they'll finish that granite curving
Okay.
at the expense of the road reconstruction, not the expense of the
Beautiful.
Cape and project,
Okay.
which makes sense. That would have been a $50,000 or $60,000 project addition if we had to foot that bill there. So that's that. What was your other question?
The other one was, you look like you put, what you might have been talking about was the house, and then you have the second part of that on the ground there. Is that what you were talking about, that they laid that down? It looked like they were
Yes.
pouring
parking-
concrete or what?
Yes,
Okay.
in front of the barn and the carriage shed is where the parking is.
Yeah.
And so they've laid the granite curbing,
Beautiful.
and they hit it down quite deeply, and that's when they hit the ledge. That's what stopped things for a while. And as of Sunday, I was down there, they had some hard surface down on top of gravel, and they had all the permeable blocks that are gonna go on top of it.
Okay.
And everything's pitched towards the barn and towards the street, where that'll be picked up by the sluiceway that they've had to literally cut into granite, and then down to a rain garden, which is alongside the dog park and parallel to Pleasant Street.
Yeah, no, it looks great. A lot of great progress. Good.
In regards to the other, we did answer some of this already,
Yeah.
in regard to the buildings. As I mentioned, we were able to procure for just under $10,000, 35 storm windows, which are designed to look like they were put on the house 50 years ago,
Yeah.
out of Iowa. One is on there now. I bought it and put it up and painted it red. Our hopes was that the Norfolk County Sheriff's Department would paint the building and would have those windows painted by them and it hung up. That's not going to happen, so I've got a crew that's volunteered to help me do that some weekend. They're the old-fashioned kind of hook-on. They actually come with the hardware. And the alternative was that the town architect 5 years ago came up with a plan to put in vinyl windows, double pane, that would have cost $38,000. And we rejected that.
Yeah.
So, other than that, we have two areas that have to be enclosed. One is under the barn, directly facing the dog park. Because back in the day, you shoveled the cow manure down into the basement, into a wagon, and you took the wagon to the field to fertilize it. It was never closed off. And there's a very similar opening under the carriage shed. The carriage shed and the barn are not quite at 90 degrees. And that's an ideal place for some young kids to get in trouble.
Yeah.
So the Friends of the Cape and Reynolds Farm is footing that expense to put in barn board, rough sawn out of Joe's sawmill, and a door, much like the door that's on the barn now, same red. And that'll be completed before opening day. And also one on the woodshed / 3-hole outhouse. The door is missing, so that'll be done as well. And that'll be buttoned up, and we'll have single key padlocks for 6 doors. The kitchen door, the barn doors, the door to the carriage shed, and then the 2 underneath the carriage shed and the barn, and 1 for the outhouse. So it'll be 1 key. Now there's several keys, and we'll eliminate that and make it simple. And I'll just deliver copies to engineering and conservation.
So, what is that getting paid out of?
I'm sorry?
What is this work getting paid out of in the buildings?
Friends. Friends is donating it from stuff they've had hanging around.
Good. No, that's great.
It's already been started.
It's good to have friends.
I'm sorry?
It's good to have friends.
Yeah. Yep.
I have a question on the dog park
Yes.
project. Would you be open to having an open house once that phase is complete?
I'm kind of shy about that kind of stuff, you know?
Why?
Yeah, let somebody else do
This
that.
is too great a project for the town.
My concerns are, one, the dog park will be ready. Obviously, the community garden is not going to be a good time to start allocating, beds to people, because it's going to be.
Yeah, but they'll see it, and it may
But-
help
but
them
we can
decide
show-
whether or not they want to
We can
apply.
showcase it, and
Yeah.
I need to work with Recreation in terms of how we ask them to pay for the use of that, which is very common. I actually went over to Easton. Easton has 2 community gardens.
Yeah.
And the one on Bay Road, almost in Norton, I can't think of the name of it. I stopped in there 2 Sundays ago, and one of the board members was taking care of his plants, and he was very cooperative, because I looked at their website, and I asked if I could have permission to utilize some of the language, and he said, get me in touch with the chair.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to plagiarize. And so there are certain fees depending on the size of the plot. And they use square footage.
Yeah.
We're going to be using these raised garden beds, which are 4 by 8. And people could have 2 or 3, depending on what they want. So those are the little things that we need to take care of for the community garden, which I'll speak with Matt on that, because really it's under recreation.
Yeah, no, it's,
Well, I mean, keep it in mind, we had the open house for the Pocket Park on Pearl Street at the high school. That, we had that on Veterans Day, so that was already later on in the year. So, and the weather was nice, but, not gonna.
Yeah, the other thing is parking. Much like you did at Glen Echo, we could have a senior citizen bus to pick up people at the
Armory?
Armory station, Armory. And, because I think we have 13 or 14 parking spaces. And I actually looked at Wareham's dog park, which recently got opened last summer. And it's a big open field, a big dog park compared to ours. We have 1/3 of an acre, they have probably close to an acre. But they only have 14 parking spaces, which I found, you got all this space, maybe they had the same kind of restrictions we have in terms of wetlands, I don't know, but it seems like it would have been more parking spaces. So I guess this is more common than I anticipated. The other thing is, I did speak with the Stoughton Foundation today in regards to signage. We have a sign for rules and etiquette which has been approved and proofed, and Warner Larson is handling that. The other signage that I thought we had to put up was stating that this is a Stoughton-funded project. And I was on the road today, and I figured, I was in a panic, maybe we gotta get this done now. I called our contact, Joe Conlon, who used to be at Arlington Recreation, now he's in Andover. And he said, only if we have other sustaining entities, like a pet store that's giving us stuff, like poop bags or whatever. Only then we have to have the Stanton name first, and then other supporters beneath it.
But you'll mention that.
So we don't have anybody yet, and my thinking is, once we open the park, we'll go to those types of vendors and say, hey, this is a great venue for you to help us,
Right.
and put your name up.
Right, but still the CPA fund also needs recognition.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely, yes. So that's a signage that we need to talk about, and it's part of the whole project, not just the dog park. That's my report.
And just on a real quick note,
Sure.
how do you plan on rolling this out? Let's just say October 1st, everything's done. There's gonna be a big announcement from the select board. It's gonna be, you know, how are people in Stoughton gonna know that it's open?
Well, I've been thinking about that, and I was thinking along the lines of how Glen Echo was open. You had did you have a soft opening, Barry?
Yes, there was, and then there was a grand opening after that. That was an actual advertised event. But yeah, and I'm trying to remember how we advertised that Glen Echo was open. Dwight, do you have any recollection?
No, word of mouth, as I recall. I can't remember that it happened before. I mean, we might have put it on Facebook and just talked about it, but that was well before we had the official grand opening.
Yeah.
I'll speak with Mark Tisdale on that, ask him.
Yeah,
His
I know
opinion.
there had been, when work first started there was a lot of buzz on social media, people asking what it was and what was going on and stuff, so that has kind of quieted down the last few weeks, but
Yeah,
certainly
no,
it'll get out there and then we can put something on.
Yeah.
But there will be a lot of interest,
Yeah, I mean, that first day, there'll be a lot of interest, so.
Yeah, I mean, you'll have word of mouth and it will travel fast once people get the idea.
If we put something up on Stoughton enthusiasts, it would be
Yeah.
ricocheting around town.
Yeah.
That's a pretty active Facebook
Yeah.
page.
I would think as soon as you get, the first few people to realize that it's open, they'll start telling people, and that will spread pretty quickly, I would think.
Yeah, and we could have an all-day affair, so I don't mind hanging around there, for a day, get a couple of other friends that are involved.
Yeah.
And just as an aside, Charlie Walsh is a member of the Friends, and he's been active for years and been quiet lately. And he called me the other day, and he said he has 3 Alaskan Huskies that he's really proud of. And he said he was thinking about bringing them down there and have a photo shoot for a PR. And I'm thinking, okay, we need a good photographer. I know 2 or 3 that will probably donate their time just for the, for the exposure, and maybe 1 or 2 other dogs, and put it on Facebook. That would probably, and with a good photographer, they could focus on all the highlights of the dog park professionally. Because you take a picture with this and you don't know what you're going to get. So that was a thought. What do you guys think about something like that?
And not do a grand opening until other features are ready, or?
Well, get that photo thing done, and then plan on when releasing it.
Yeah.
Maybe after the verbal announcement or the date has been set.
Yeah.
And it's going to be contingent on if they finish on time.
Yeah.
So I'm keeping a close ear to the ground on that.
Right, and you've got Stanton, you're keeping them up to date on the progress of the
That's
project.
Freddie's job. She is the
She's
she is the
liaison.
contact employee for that project.
Okay. All right, because again, there's the issue with the maintenance funding, that they wanted it done by September 1st. which
Right.
We figured they'd be flexible on anyway.
Right. I don't know how hard and firm they are in that pool. I mean, they ran into legitimate bumps in the road, unforeseens. It wasn't because of poor planning on or execution on the contractor's part,
Yeah.
by any means.
Yeah, that's an extra plus. That was not something we
No,
were
it wasn't
counting on.
figured
If we
on,
get it,
Yeah.
that
You
would
get
be
it?
great, just
Great.
another feather in your cap.
I actually explained to Joe Conlon from the State Foundation how their funding came through at the right time after the sunset law diminished our funding.
Oh, yeah, we would have,
We wouldn't be talking about this. That's it.
and if I was Stanton Foundation, I wouldn't be as flexible on that issue as on you hit ledge.
Yeah.
That's a legitimate reason to
Yeah.
cause a couple weeks delay.
Yeah.
The internal
Yeah.
bureaucracy issue is not But whatever, if we get it, that would be just great,
Yeah.
and we should let people know that.
Absolutely, great project.
Yeah. All right, thanks.
Okay.
So I'm gonna put something together with the CPC logo
Okay.
and pass it out to you guys.
Yeah.
And we have a local. we have a
John
local-
Lenahan?
I got it.
We have a local graphic arts, CO Graphics.
Yeah.
They've done a lot of work for the Murphy Oil Company for our trucks and other things, and they're really keen on detail.
I think they did all the signs for Dwight's
Yeah.
project.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Oh.
Didn't CO Graphics do the signs for the historical signs? Dwight? I'm pretty sure they did.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's
They're
a
good
certain
guys.
consistency, all those signs up where he's got them all over town.
Yeah. And I'll coordinate that through engineering as well.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
vital records, I don't know if there's anything more to add there,
I
Barry.
just want to let everybody know that I've been in touch by email with Reggie, who is the interim town clerk, and she is interested in continuing on with the project, but obviously has other things that take precedence, given that she's just getting her feet wet, I guess, best way to say it.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just jump in quick?
Sure can.
Sure.
I was just gonna say, I do think people have been waiting for the dog park for a long time, and as well as the project in its entirety, and when we do open it, we should make sure we do have a well-coordinated communications plan, so that people say, I waited all this time and nobody even told me it was open.
That was my concern, yeah.
Yeah,
Probably a Saturday would work out best too, you know what I mean, a Saturday,
yeah,
and that way, you know, I mean, obviously, it's up to you, but I mean,
It could be 2 days, Saturday
Yeah.
and Sunday.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know,
open house weekend.
Yeah.
but yeah, I know a lot of people have been waiting for this, so it'll be used.
I'm gonna see if Eric Coleman will ring too, and get his input.
Yeah,
Yeah, he could tell you more about how they went about opening Glen Echo,
Yeah.
between the soft and the hard opening.
okay, anything else, John? You muted him, so,
No, that was it, thank you.
okay,
Thank you, John.
You're kind of on the next item as well, John, but I think we're all set here. The administrative items, the reminder on CPC term.
Oh, wait. Yeah, okay. Yeah, John, how's that going with getting sworn in? Any luck?
I still haven't gotten sworn in yet.
Okay, all right.
We did document the re-election by the committee.
Yep, I got that. Okay,
Okay.
I'll keep carrying it forward.
After I'm retired, these things will be easier.
Yes, they
No
will.
doubt.
Okay, approval of minutes Barry sent out the other day, CPC meeting of June 5th. I think that's the only one we're
That's the
looking
only
for
one we're
tonight.
looking at
Yeah,
right
June
now.
5th. Did everyone
I-
have a
I
chance
have
to
no
read them?
questions.
Does anyone have any
I
comments?
Minutes.
I'm sorry, Dwight, you kind of broke up there?
I said, I move we approve the minutes.
Okay,
Yeah, I had one comment on them actually, Barry.
go ahead.
On the page 5, item 11, I think it's on Benson Road,
Atkinson?
Atkinson, whatever, yeah.
Yeah.
So it may not have been, your sentence, one sentence says, Mr. Castler replied that a CR is required for land purchase with CPA funds, so it may not have been done on properties by other means.
Acquired by other
I think he
means.
wanted to insert the word acquired there, yeah.
Yep, thank you.
Any other comments, concerns, questions? Then we have a motion on the table to approve from Dwight. Somebody wants to second it?
Second.
Rich seconds it. We'll take a roll call. Bob?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes?
Dwight?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Let's see, John Linehan?
Yes.
Is Ola Bumby still there?
He's muted.
I don't think so.
Is that-
Larissa is here.
Larice?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that everybody?
I think that's I just
Got everybody.
get a count, so there's 3 of us here.
And chair votes yes.
Yeah, and 1, 2, 3, 4 online, so that's 7.
Okay. Next up, Barry, is you authorizing, we had talked about getting together an ad soliciting project applications?
Yes, that was how we found out about Benson Road in the first place, and I wanted to do another ad, looking for people to apply. We'll tie this in with our next meeting. Our next meeting we can have be our annual public hearing, which we hold every year in the fall. So, given that that's the case, what I would need is funding for both an ad asking for people to come forward with proposals like we did last year, and the additional funding for advertising the public meeting. We need to put in a legal notice. We need to put in a, just a more, what do you call it? Just a regular, actually, no, it's two things. There's the legal notice and the request that I already mentioned.
Yeah.
For new projects.
Does the legal notice has to go in twice?
It has to be, yes, it has to be done twice.
The other one can just be the one time?
Yep. So we have potentially some savings over what it cost us last year. If we can, if those savings are still available, it will cost us perhaps under $400. If not, it will cost us like about $1,250. So I'm hoping that it's going to be the low end. I'm checking with Fran. We've got a special deal with a couple of the newspapers. So what I'd like is authorization, let's say up to $1,300 for ad expenses.
So can we have a motion to spend up to $1,300 to run the two legal notices for our public hearing as well as a public solicitation of proposals?
So made.
Second.
Made and seconded. Any questions, concerns? Hearing none, we will take a vote. Bob?
I'll second that motion.
Oh, John, we had a second here in the room. I'm sorry, you may not have
Oh,
heard.
good. Sorry.
Yes.
So we'll take the vote. Bob?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Dwight?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Clarice?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So you put an ad in the paper last year, and that's how you got Benson Road?
Yep, it was in
Wow.
the Suburban Shopper.
That's unbelievable.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, well, I mean, we had a conversation at a CPC meeting, but, a lot of people who know about the CPC are kind of connected through the town and stuff, but
Yeah.
we're here for the whole community,
Yeah.
so getting that notice out to anybody to say, hey, come and find,
Yeah.
is, I think, important. I think it's the right thing for us to do. Okay. Briefly, and we touched base a little bit on the closeout procedure, but I don't know if everybody on the committee receives the notices and monthly emails from the Community Preservation Coalition. But when they sent one out in August, they had on it a list of their top 10 help documents that people request. And the first one had to do with closeout procedures. And they spelled out, so I had Barry send it out as part of the agenda. It actually spelled out the three ways that most communities do it. The first way is pretty rare. The second way is what Biz is asking us to do and that we'll adopt going forward, is to literally go back to the legislative body that approved the projects at the end of the project and say, here, these are all closed. The third way is what we adopted. I don't know if it was because they had outlined it or if we just did it the right way, but where this committee votes, reviews the project one final time, votes to close it, and gets a sign off from the proponent, from this committee, and from the town director of finance. We will continue to do that. We'll just go that one next step of then creating a warrant for town meeting that says, here's 5 or 6 or 8 projects that we're going to close down. And then everybody agrees the project's closed, it's done. Biz has a better way of closing out her books that way, so it's a good process.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting that they wrote up and pretty much described what we were doing and what Biz was doing, and I just wanted to share it with everybody and say, that's kind of where we're going with this stuff.
Yep, and we'll put down a marker so the door will be,
Yes.
the books will be closed on a particular project once we close it out.
Okay, next item on the agenda is other anticipated new business or emergency matters.
Yes.
Anybody have?
I I do.
Yes.
I got a email and a call today from a developer who would like to do some affordable housing. And he's got two projects that he has in mind. One in downtown and one on Washington Street towards Easton. And he's looking for some CPA financial aid under community housing. So again, this is just very early days. I told him to submit a pre-application. We talked a little bit. The downtown project, I think he said, is 48 units. It's mixed use with 2 commercial units on the floor plus affordable housing above. And the other project, I think he said, was 12 affordable units on Washington Street. So that may be coming before us. I gave him a guideline. I said the affordable housing projects we've helped finance in the past, we've given between 10 and 15,000 per unit. So I said, you can use that. If you can use that as a guide, then go ahead. And so, again, I just spoke to him this afternoon for the first time. I just want to let everybody know that may be coming. Given that in developing property, carrying costs are a huge concern. So he may try to I shouldn't say that, but sneak it in. He may try to get it in by fall town meeting to avoid carrying costs that he would have if he had to wait until the next fiscal year. But again, I'm going to see what he wants to do on that.
And you also heard that from Pam McCarthy as well, right?
Pam McCarthy was the person who contacted
So he's already been in some discussion with the town. I think he's been to was it the zoning board or the ZBA?
He's been to Pam's office. I can't remember whether he said.
Because, well, November's far away. I mean,
It
that
is.
warrant in September is only weeks away, so.
I know,
Yeah.
it's a really short window. Let me just go back to his email and see hang on a minute.
And while you're doing that, that was one of the things I was gonna bring up in my weekly Falmouth Enterprise. They have a nice little front page article, Affordable Housing Gains Community Preservation Support. And we'll get a copy of this and send it out to everybody, but the town just approved $2.4 million to convert, it's an old nursing home, to get 67 affordable units in it. They're gonna put in 30 year-round units and 37 month-to-month rentals, because they're doing it in part for workers and stuff. Out of the 30 units, there's only 8 that are gonna be for people at 80% of the AMI. And then the rest of the year-round ones, people can earn up to 120% of the AMI, and the rentals are up to 140%. So it's I thought it was kind of an interesting structure.
Yeah.
But one of the things that struck me is they're spending $2.4 million to get 67 units that aren't even all of what we got in terms of permanent deed restrictions on 100 units.
Right.
Where is this located?
This town of Falmouth.
How much?
Downtown Falmouth. It's a bit of a controversial project too, and I think they're actually looking for a little bit more money than this, but
How much are they looking for?
2.4 million,
24 million for how many units?
67 units
Okay.
of affordable housing, but not all are going to be SHI eligible, I would think, because,
CPA eligible.
oh, I think they'll all be CPA eligible.
Really? I thought you had to be at 80% or below.
Well, you can contribute to the project from the CPA.
Yeah.
They're gonna get 8 units that are permanently restricted that are at the 80%, so. They didn't really talk about
Oh, you're
that.
right. The SHI only kicks in if they have more than 25%
Right.
of qualifying affordable.
Yeah,
housing,
I think the
which
issue,
they don't. Right.
but, I mean, as much as we as a town may have it, Falmouth has a much worse, the whole Cape has problems with affordable housing, so there's a bunch of these things that they're working on, but I just wanted to share the article because I've been reading it. Then when
Can I
Barry
just
mentioned,
see that for a second?
I just gotta get copies of it now.
Just to get back to the question about the developer in Stoughton, yes,
Yeah.
he's been to the planning department for a pre-application meeting. So, and he's also looking into assistance from Mass Development and Mass Housing. And us.
Okay.
That's great.
Look forward to hearing for it, I mean, Be nice to get moving on projects like that. I think we all know it's a need.
Right. So it may come, he may try to squeeze it in before town meeting. I know it's gonna be a short window.
Yeah, well, we'll find out what happens.
Yep.
Any other unanticipated, any other news, questions from the board, from the committee?
Yeah, John Linehan. I will be submitting an application on behalf of the Open Space Committee for getting the next townwide open space and recreation plan developed. Barry, perhaps you could email me the form, or is it?
It's online, and go to the website, and there's a link that says all, forms and applications.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
You're right.
That's where it is.
I assume that's for
So-
the annual town meeting, John?
Yeah, I had myself, based on the kind of stuff you were talking about earlier, dissuaded the committee from trying to go for the fall town meeting. I think it's hard to justify it as something that needs to be acted on in
Yeah.
the short term.
Right.
How many years is it since the last one?
It is 6. It actually ran out last January. So we are actually over. I thought we had 7 years, and so I guess we still fell under the old 5-year plan, but I thought we had 7, but we don't.
Okay, we'll look forward to that.
Great. All right.
Okay, next meeting, we penciled in Wednesday, October 9th, because October 2nd is Rosh Hashanah.
Right.
Is that going to work for
I
everybody?
don't, Bob, I'm thinking now, Bob, we probably have a SRA meeting that night, because it's the second Wednesday, right?
I think so, yes.
Yeah. Are there alternative nights perhaps to that? Work.
I'm pretty flexible in terms of nights.
Well, it's our next meeting, so we need to set a date before we leave here.
Any of the folks online, are you okay on the 9th, or are you flexible to a different night that week? Wednesday?
Both. The 9th's okay, and I can move around too.
Likewise.
John Linehan, would Wednesday work?
No, that is the.
I am trying to check my
Tuesday.
calendar on my phone while I'm
Yeah.
talking to you, so a little challenging for me. October,
Yeah,
no.
Tuesday or Thursday, or Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday that week?
Yeah, I also would have a conflict that Wednesday.
On the 9th, so
Uh,
2 conflicts.
Thursday looks like it works right now. And Tuesday looks like it works right now.
Larice?
Any day's fine for me.
Want to shoot for Tuesday?
Shoot for Tuesday.
Rich?
The
that
8th.
work?
I'm fine. I'm good with that.
Tuesday,
sorry.
the 8th, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Barry, can you just send us out a reminder so we can get it in our calendars?
I will
Oh,
do
yeah.
that. Yep.
And with that, we have item number 16. They could use a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Bob, seconded by Rich. We'll take a vote. Dwight? Looks like he...
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Larice?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
Okay.
So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
All right. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good
Night.
evening.
Have a good night.